I'm an engineer for people that don't know. I'm an industrial engineer. So in university, when you start learning how to process some things, some information or whatever, there's different kind of way of doing it, and one of them is blockchain. Actually, blockchain, it's a old technology. People think that if you come to the crypto shit, whatever this is, they sell it like, it's innovation. Actually, no, blockchain is a very old technology, and it's very inefficient. Engineering is quite the opposite thing. You have to be really efficient in terms of basically everything, the process and management and whatever you can think in a company, because that means time and that means money. But that's when I hear about it, and I was like, I mean, if it's not good, I don't care about that. So, but still, I had to study.
So that's the first dismissal. First time you hear about it, first dismissal.
Exactly.
Keep them cold till I'm old. I don't plan to blow my load. Wallet so blue, if you know, you know. It's better than bonds, better than gold. Finna reap up what I sow. If it money can't keep up, it gets sold. How many times you been told? DCA's the way to go. Higher highs, higher lows. Every year my network grows. Every day my network grows. Running relays, running nodes. Yeah. Dollar a day's a minimum. Stats, zap sats. Any fear I get, flipping them.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Ask a Bitcoiner 21 Questions, where you can win 21,000 sats in this full interview with Juan Cienfuegos. Juan is the host of the Bitcorner Podcast. He's an El Salvadoran living in Spain, and he also organizes the Bitcoin conference in Spain as well. Juan, how are you doing today?
Hey, how you doing? And thank you for having me in the podcast. I'm good and great. A chill day, so it's always good to have a Bitcoin podcast. So thank you.
Yeah, it's so nice having you. And it was really nice to meet you in Barcelona. I think you're wearing the t-shirt. I think I saw it earlier. Can you hold it up?
Yeah, it's cool. Guys, I'm representing you, so.
Exactly. So we met it was in June, the beginning of June, I think.
Yeah, actually that conference, that was madness.
It was, well, madness for you on the organizing end, but sweetness for me because I got to chill and do what I love to do at conferences, which is having side conversations with people and, deep diving into like certain topics and stuff. So it was really nice to meet you in person. Even though it was June, it felt like it was a million years ago.
Absolutely. And you know that it was crazy because for us, it was the first time doing a conference, and it was a cyber conference. So it's not just only Bitcoin related, but also Nostr related, a lot of developers. And one of the things that we wanted to do, it was not just to make like another Bitcoin conference where, you can get sponsored even from shitcoiners or whatever. We wanted to do like our main core, that probably we'll talk more about that, about our meetups in Spain. And actually that's one thing that I love because it reminds me a lot about El Salvador in terms of how they build the purposes. Everyone has a goal, and they're very cyberpunk. They have been probably since the begin. I don't want to say the beginnings in 2009, but probably in the early stages of Bitcoin. So yeah. And in the end, I love that people had fun, just like you and the other Bitcoiners that came around the world. It was a great conference. Yeah,
it was. And I look forward to returning. And actually, later in the interview, I really do want to get your take on how you see Bitcoin adoption in El Salvador versus Spain. España. Yeah. Sorry, I wanted to say that earlier.
Yeah, it's awesome. You're improving your Spanish.
Yeah, and my last name is Gomez. Most people think I'm Hispanophone, but I am not. But before we get into like adoption in El Salvador versus Spain, can you share with us your Bitcoin origin story?
Oh yeah, so it's actually really interesting because I studied Bitcoin in the university. So I'm an engineer for people that don't know. I'm an industrial engineer. So in university, when you start learning how to process some things, some information or whatever. Uh, there's different kind of way of doing it, and one of them is blockchain. Actually, blockchain, it's a old technology. People think that if you come to the crypto shit, whatever it is, they sell it like it's innovation. Actually, no, blockchain is a very old technology, and it's very inefficient.
Exactly.
But yeah, but the difference. So if you're not Bitcoin related, just start wondering, so why Bitcoin using it? And the thing is that Satoshi Nakamoto, what actually did is that he used blockchain for one purposes, and it's just to make sure that the transactions are verified and also encrypted, and with a very slow process. And we can go to in the rabbit hole of that, but let's say just in simple terms that blockchain was actually that future for this specific thing was perfect. So Satoshi just took advantage of that, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first thing that I heard about it. But because I was studying engineers, and engineering is quite the opposite thing. You had to be really efficient in terms of basically everything, the process and management and whatever you can think in a company, because that means time and that means money. But because it's part of the history of everything that how you do process in engineering, and actually it's very interesting because most of the things related to engineering also come from military improvement that they
Yeah.
used to do, like in the World War II, whatever. So yeah, that's another rabbit hole. But that's when I hear about it, and I was like, I mean, if it's not good, I don't care about that. So, but still, I had to
So
study it.
that's the first dismissal. First time you hear about it, first dismissal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but then moving fast forward, I think in 2017, I have a sister, and my sister was living in Australia. Then she came back to Barcelona because she used to live in Barcelona. Back then, I was also living here in Barcelona, and we were talking. We were hanging out, and she told me recently when she came back from Australia, like, "Hey, do you know? Have you ever heard about Bitcoin? Because we talk about whatever now." And I was like, "Yeah, how do you know about that?" Because she's a business administrator and economics and whatever. I was like, "How do you know about that?" And she told me in Australia it's very popular. I was like, "Oh, all right." And she started talking to me about how they use it in this transaction, that they had some friends that use it Bitcoin, some invest in Bitcoin. But then the conversation was super nice because I also talked like once a week with all my family members, my dad, my mom, my dad, and my sister. And my dad was like, "Yeah." My dad was like, "Yeah, I have heard also about Bitcoin in 2017." And I was like, "How do you know about that?" And he told me, yeah, and he told me like, "Have you ever watched Kaiser Report?" I was like, "Who's that guy?" And he told me, "You haven't seen that show?" And I was like, "I'm gonna share with you." And it was Max Kaiser. So, and showed me, he passed me some episodes, and I keep learning about it. He was, I mean, if you know Max, you know how the guy is about Bitcoin. And then when I was like, all right, so my dad is a pediatrician, I'm an engineer, and my sister is someone coming from economics. There's something here, and I started digging into it, and then I was like, all right, how I can learn more, and I started watching my Kaiser report. Actually, Max Kaiser was my first orange pill, and then it was like, the classic one like Seyfedin with
Yeah.
his book. So yeah, that was my first experience with Bitcoin.
Yeah, definitely. And we share part of our Bitcoin origin story in Max Kaiser and our fathers telling us to watch the Kaiser report. I wonder how many people Max and Stacy have directly or even indirectly orange pilled. If there are wealthy Bitcoiners today, I guarantee a large percentage of them have heard of the Kaiser report or watched the Kaiser report, or the Kaiser report is part of their, their origin story in some way.
Yeah, and they're what I love about Max and Stacy is that they are very unapologetic. They say
Yeah.
things without filter.
Yeah.
So, and when you hear another show related to economics and politics or whatever, they always have some kind of agenda because there's a company or enterprise behind them. But
Yeah.
they were really independent, so
Yeah.
they didn't have no filters. I was like, all right, this guy, he doesn't care what people think. He just say what he needs to say and just leave it to the world. So that's why
Yeah.
I like the most. Yeah.
And I see that on X sometimes. like there are insults towards Max Keiser because of his takes on certain things. He's a very out there person, and I think that his style is shock to get your attention, but oftentimes it's like, okay, boomer kind of thing. And the other day I was thinking to myself, if he is someone who has benefited from being born at a certain time when the money printer was just revving up and stuff, and he had so many opportunities which he took advantage of. I do believe that he and Stacy are very well off and stuff, and he still chose to speak about Bitcoin. And Stacy, she's not a boomer, but they still chose to speak about Bitcoin. Doesn't that mean something? Like there's something a lot deeper going on.
Absolutely. No, and I think that one thing that you need to know about Max is that in person is completely opposite. He's a showman. He actually wants loved to be a showman. But yeah, actually one of the most important, most interesting things that he has is that he comes from Wall Street.
Yeah.
And during my career being a Bitcoiner, I also met other people that come from Wall Street, and they have pivoted into Bitcoin. So these are smart guys. You know, they play with a lot of money, and they play even with the reputation. So
Yeah.
yeah, if they have studied it, and I think one of the things that I can say that Max did well is that he believed in Bitcoin when worth nothing, like
Yeah.
$1. You know, so he actually understood the value proposition of Bitcoin, knowing the investment thing. Well, you can see it 10, almost 15 years later, but I think he saw the potential beyond the investing, that it could actually be something really revolutionary in terms of money, right? So
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. He knows the game. And I think that Max and Stacy are a great segue into El Salvador Bitcoin adoption, and
Yeah.
then how you see things playing out in Spain. So were you in El Salvador when Bukele made Bitcoin legal tender?
Nope. But yeah, but it's super funny because no, I was studying here, so I need to backwards a little bit to go rewind a little bit, and it's because I came here to study my career, because in the end I always wanted to be like, you know, in Barcelona. I love Barcelona a lot.
Yeah.
And back then, before now in my family say times before Bukele and after Bukele, so we stand like a part
Yeah. What
a
is that?
time period.
Before Christ. So it would be BB
Yeah.
and then AB.
Absolutely, it's something like that. So yeah, before Bukele, you know, El Salvador was a madness, and yeah, so that's another rabbit hole, the story of El Salvador. But yeah, it was really difficult times. So we as millennials that we were doing a career, we didn't see a future in El Salvador. So that's why we had like people, really talented people, going to spread into the world, right? So that was something that also affected to El Salvador, because if you have violence and corruption, but also all the talent
Yeah.
flew away, how can you improve your country, right? So yeah, so sadly that was the reality of El Salvador. Sadly, that's why I end up here. Well, not sadly, because I love Barcelona. Sorry, but I love El
You
Salvador.
chose.
Yeah, that's my second home. But I mean, El Salvador, if we're going to discuss about compare El Salvador and Spain, and El Salvador is quite a little bit better. But yeah, no. So when Bukele made it legal tender, actually, I was here, and it was super interesting because when I left El Salvador, Bukele was the mayor of San Salvador. I actually voted for him when he was a mayor. But when he proposed the Bitcoin law, I started digging into people that I knew, closest circle, whatever, why Bukele was doing that. And I actually find out that he was a Bitcoiner, and people think that because normally president, like let's say Donald Trump, they are president politicians, but they get into Bitcoin. But he was
Yeah.
backward. He was actually a Bitcoiner. That it happened. He became a president.
So
So
wait, timeline check.
uh-huh.
he was mayor of San Salvador. Was it in 2016 or
Around that time, yeah,
around that
probably.
time? And when you voted for him, did you know that he was a Bitcoiner, or were you into Bitcoin yet? I think you said 2017. So, what drew you to his to voting for him as a candidate? Was it his values, or was it Bitcoin?
When he became mayor.
Yeah.
No, no, no. Well, no, when he became mayor is because he actually made proof of work in Nuevo Cuscatlán because he became mayor of Nuevo Cuscatlán. Nuevo Cuscatlán, like I don't remember the days. Need to check, but let's say 2012, something like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, Nuevo Cuscatlán was like very normal, but didn't have any improvements on anything back then in El Salvador. But he improved a lot. He didn't get his paycheck back then. He actually his paycheck he returned it to the people who know Cuscatlán, and he made. To pay to the best students so they can have a career or
Oh, wow.
university or what. Yeah. So, and then he made like improvement in terms of security and on art and whatever. So we saw some improvements in Nuevo Cuscatlán, and you saw Nuevo Cuscatlán improving, and then the rest of El Salvador like a shithole. So we can see the contrast. So we were like. So this guy actually is doing something for the first time. So that's why I voted to him, because if he became the mayor of San Salvador, we said, all right, it's not the same run like a small town that is the capital, right? So, and yeah, he was doing a great job. That's why now he's the president.
Wow. So it was his proof of work that that got your vote. Isn't that cool?
Hmm.
And then you guys are both obviously Bitcoiners. Well, it's revealed that you guys are both Bitcoiners afterward. Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to go into that timeline to see, I guess, just to highlight Bitcoin values versus what people say. And so the work that, you talk about that Bukele did demonstrates that, like, at least he was legit. I can't speak for the future, but, his work has been good so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's very. I think he's very patriotic. You can tell that, and that's one thing that for us was missing, even for myself. Back then it was like you cannot be proud of something that it was super bad, because when you related to El Salvador, it was like all violence and Las Maras and whatever. So it's like, how can you be proud of that? Because that's what represents you in the news and whatever. So it was really bad for us to be represented for them, because that was the main thing back then in El Salvador.
Yeah.
But when he started to change that, because he was very patriotic, and we have seen the improvements, because the thing that I'm saying that he's very patriotic is in the sense that he actually want to improve the country no matter
Yeah.
what. Hmm. So, and that's actually what we have seen right now. There's a lot of controversy that we can speak about that, but he put El Salvador like in the first line. He matters about the country, and he doesn't care what people think, right? So, and because you change that, so let's say that the bad layer of all the corruption and las maras and violence, or the most violent country in the world vanished, and then you have the other filter that it's all right. So who are the Salvadorians? That actually the people that wants to build, that are trying to improve their lives, that are hardworking, so whatever. So that represent me, and I think that's the feeling that now Salvadorians have right now. That all right, these actually are the people that represent us. So, and people are getting back their patriotism right now. And I think that's something also related to Bitcoiners. Bitcoiners, we always look for proof of work and to improve our lives, in terms of long-term period, right? So it's something that it's also related with us as Salvadoran, because I think that we always wanted to improve our lives, because we're very hardworking people, because obviously
Yeah.
it's a third world country, so you want to improve your lifestyle and your uh, economic level,
Yep.
but we didn't have the chance to do that because of the maras and the corruptions and the violence. So, but now that you have that you got rid of that, and also you have a tool that actually protects your time and value, then that's how you can relate El Salvador as proof of work, but also the Bitcoin, right? So I think that's why we can say that we still are the Bitcoin country.
So it's 2022. You're in Barcelona. Bukele says Bitcoin is legal tender in El Salvador. Over the next few years, I say we hear reports because I visited in 2022, but I mean, I don't live there. So I have to say we hear reports that things in El Salvador are getting better. How do you, Juan, in Barcelona, how are you feeling as this is progressing?
Comparing until now, like the
Yeah, well, the BB, the before Bukele, in Barcelona to the AD, the year of Bukele. I'm bad with these analogies, but
yeah.
do you feel like like a sense of pride in Spain because your country is on the map, everyone's speaking about it, it's the first country to do something on this level?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we actually have improved a lot, not just in the terms of violence and that we get rid of that. But yeah, in Spain, actually, if you want to compare that, yeah, of course, when that's another thing. You mentioned actually something great that first, when people talk about El Salvador, what
Yeah.
like I was telling you, was like the first thing that people thought of was like, ah, las maras, or oh yeah, it was so violent, or it's insecure, or whatever. But it's beautiful. We always had that the country was beautiful, but it was too dangerous. Uh, and now when people talk about El Salvador, it's quite different. Yeah, of course, I feel proud about that because one, about Bitcoin, but second, because it's one of the safest countries in the world. So now it's still beautiful. You can go there, but also it's secure. So actually, it's one of the first choices that you can tell to anyone that wants to visit Latin America. It's like, at least from my closest circle, the first choices that we recommended is like, go to Costa Rica. Costa Rica is super safe. It's beautiful. It's awesome. Uh, South America, it's also beautiful. It's awesome, but it has a lot of corruption. It's in the end, it has some trouble, right? But it's still worth to go to anywhere of those places. But now you can say like, hey, you can go to Costa Rica. You can go to El Salvador. You can explore Latin America. But of course, you always want to encourage to go to the safest places, right? Uh, and now if you want to compare to Spain, it depends what you want to compare because in terms of economy or in terms of even
Well,
go ahead.
hi, everyone. It's Saida, host of Ask a Bitcoiner 21 Questions. To my listeners based in Canada and the US, if you're looking for a seamless way to stack sats, i.e., save money in Bitcoin, check out the Bitcoin Well. And you're probably thinking, Sai, you moved to Switzerland a long time ago. How do you know the service is good? Well, I asked my father, the man who famously told me there's nothing wrong with being frugal, to test out their service, and everything checks out. He visited one of the ATMs in Scarborough. It was very intuitive, very easy to use, and the fees were not too high. So if my dad says it's okay, it's okay. Remember to use referral code AAB21Q when you stack sats with the Bitcoin Well. And please, 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 let me know how your experience is. Give me all of the details. And if you'd ever like to be on Ask a Bitcoiner 21 Questions to talk about your experience with Bitcoin Well or just your experience with Bitcoin in general, I would be more than happy to host you. Well, let's start with Bitcoin adoption because
All right.
I think it's it may be easier to compare because you're very active in obviously the Spanish or Barcelona Bitcoin community, and then zoom out a bit more to like the Spanish level and the EU level because Spain is part of the EU.
All right. Yeah. So it's really interesting because let's start with Barcelona and then at national level in Spain. Barcelona had, like I told you at the beginning of the podcast, they had the very core maximalist Bitcoiner that I have ever met. Actually, a lot of Bitcoin projects that are currently on development or have been developed happen here in Barcelona, and I met a
Oh,
lot. Yeah, for example, Netminer. Actually, this is a guy from here for Barcelona, so it's awesome what the guys are doing. Also, there is Rewind Bitcoin. Rewind Bitcoin. I don't know if you guys know, but Rewind Bitcoin is something probably related or similar like Liana is doing.
Okay,
It-
I'm gonna write that down.
so for just a little bit of context about that is like if you want to freeze your Bitcoin, uh, because Rewind Bitcoin is different in Liana because Rewind Bitcoin is actually protects you from physical attacks. If someone actually wants to hurt you to steal your Bitcoin, so but you use time locks and well a lot of things that Liana also do, but for this specific thing. Liana is more like if you pass away, how you gonna pass it to your future generation, right? So yeah, going back, so it's really interesting because there's a lot of core Bitcoin and maximalists. There's a lot of things developing, but then if you go to into politics and regulation or whatever, and then I'm maxing uh, out to the country, I don't get it because they're going backwards. They put a lot of regulation against Bitcoin, and you can even see if you can ask any uh, Spanish or people or whoever lives in Spain, and they'll tell you that it's super expensive. That life is you need to have like two jobs because even the rent is super expensive. The lifestyle is great, but you need to know how to balance your money. So you're struggling, and from a third world country that have been in inflation, not just like Argentina, but we also in El Salvador had some inflation like when we switched from colones to the dollars.
Yep.
So we lost the value of that. So because I experienced that when I was a young child, and then I'm seeing this in Barcelona. It's like in Spain actually. It's
Yeah.
like guys, you're going into a direction that is actually really bad. But the thing is, like as you mentioned, Spain is part of the EU, so they're the thing that backed them up. In the end, it doesn't back anything their currency, but is uh, the central bank, the European central bank, right? So somehow they're protected about that in terms that they can regulate the inflation, but it's still if if you actually know how money works, that's not the solution. You're just slowing the problem. So I don't know what's going on in Spain, why they don't push towards that if they see their economy is going back. Probably something's related with the euro, right? El Salvador is different. El Salvador, our approach is quite different because we don't use Bitcoin as an investment. We actually use it
Yeah.
as it is like a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, right? So, yeah.
So
I don't-
individual citizens are they're learning how to manage better than I guess the average person in Spain or in Europe for that matter. When I was there for the conference in June, one thing that I love to do when I visit a city is I just go for a walk in town, and this is a very nerdy thing, but I check out commercial real estate. And if there's a residential part of town, I just look to see how many for sale signs there are, how many for lease signs there are, how many boutiques or storefronts are completely closed down. And I noticed quite a few in town in Barcelona. Granted, I wasn't there like a year ago to make a comparison to see if the number seems to be going up or down, but I noticed quite a few in Barcelona. In Geneva here, there are so many places in prime real estate areas in town that are for rent or for lease or for sale as well. So it doesn't seem, if commercial real estate is an indicator of how the economy is going, it doesn't seem as though, things are going that well on the European continent.
No, absolutely not. And it's really interesting because also in El Salvador we have seen kind of the opposite in the sense of the how can I say that? Well, yeah, let's talk about real estate in El Salvador right now. It's all the places, all the lands is it worth more in terms because you have seen that also that the country is improving. So you can have you can see that it can have it can be more expensive depending how they approach it can be inflation, and actually no, it's actually because you are providing value into an area. So I think one of the things that I have seen in El Salvador compared to here is that some areas are getting expensive because they're providing more value in the sense of infrastructures or businesses or more opportunities. Here is just well, it's very complex, but here in Barcelona is because tourism, a lot of tourism, but because it's also a metropolitan. It's also um, um, a lot of laws that they have, really odd laws in terms of old buildings. So
Oh, yeah.
so I don't know. It's really complex real estate here. That's another rabbit hole, actually. If you ask to any Spanish citizen here, yeah,
Because Barcelona as well is part of, okay, I'm going to do my best to say this right, Catalonia.
yeah.
Catalonia, yeah. Which is different than Madrid. And so I seem to recall, was it 2 years ago? The head of the Catalonian party had to leave Spain or something because the election was kind of,
Oh yeah.
there's division and stuff like that. So I'm guessing that adds another level of complexity because those from that region, those, I don't want to generalize, but there's a strong voice or push to actually separate from Spain, right?
Yeah, actually, that's another rabbit hole. But let's talk a little bit.
So
Let's
many
talk
rabbit holes.
yeah, but let's talk a little bit about that. Yeah, that happened, I think, in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, or 2016. Yeah. So the thing is that it actually was a referendum. So the referendum was they used to do it every 4 years, I think, or 5 years. I need to check that information, but they used to do it like very often. So what happened that time is that normally they never got the 50%, more than 50, the 51% to get
Attack.
the
51, sorry.
yeah
Sorry.
the approval to be independent. But that year actually they got more than 50%. So it was the first time that actually Catalan people wanted to be independent on Spain. But the thing is, but really complex, and I don't have a political here. I just want to wash my hands, guys. I don't have a political influence here or a position. That's what I heard in because I have heard stories from both fronts, but the one that it was more controversial is because they use money from actually the government. But here is a little bit different because Catalonia is actually their own government that they need to talk with the Spanish government. So if people from the US actually hearing about this, the best way to understand it is that you have the federal level and the state level. So the state level have their own laws, but the federal level is a national level. So they need to communicate in terms of regulations and law. So that's something that's quite similar here in the states of Spain. So let's say that they do the referendum, but with the resources of the states, and they never communicate. There was a missing communication around there. I don't know. Probably someone related to politics will explain it better than me. But that's the surface that all the controversy that happened. So yeah. So and not just happened here in Catalonia. Actually, there's a lot of different states from Spain that want to be independent, right? Like, but because let's say the cultural is very grassroots to the area, but in the end is that's what makes a country richer because when you combine different cultures in a different country, that's for me at least is like make it richer. You can see the different states or the different histories of cultures, how a country developed during their history, right?
Yeah, when I used to, before I was a mom and married, I used to do solo hiking vacations, and there was one thing we did. I think it was like 7 days or something in Andalusia. And so I saw the Moorish influence and stuff, and I learned that, because I mean, I knew nothing about the Ottomans and, all of those wars and stuff. And so I saw for the first time the influence and how they passed through and stuff. And I thought it's really cool to have just like something physical that's living that shows you the history of a place instead of destroying everything that's old and rebuilding new things. It's nice to have just a touch of history present, at least for me as a tourist. Yes, that was really cool. But so with this, like against a backdrop of like, some people wanting to separate, the money for referendums is given by the state and stuff like that. What happens in the case of the digital euro, knowing that I'm pretty sure the ECB could care less about, whether Catalan wants its independence or its cultural expression or whatever? How do you see things playing out?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I think that's one thing that's why Spain and also Europe in general are like pushing against Bitcoin because of course they have their own agenda, right? And if they're pushing right now that they're going to release the digital euro at the end is a CBDC, and I think it's in October if I'm not mistaken. So of course they want that people use their own currency, but so first they need to protect that and to push towards the people use that. And of course, if people don't know actually what money is, that's our main problem. You cannot get the difference between Bitcoin and the CBDCs or the digital euro. And I think one thing that actually the EU can use to mislead people is that when people think right now about Bitcoin, they think about it like as an investment property, right? Just like real estate, just like stocks, just like whatever. So, or they can use the money laundering, whatever. But I think that it's getting rid little by little things because my country and also United States and also Russia are using Bitcoin, so they're not dumb people using it.
Yeah.
So yeah, going back to the digital euro, they have an advantage because they can say, hey, you know what, we're just using a more advanced technology. You already guys use the credit cards, you barely use the paper money, so we can improve that. But what they don't, and they can also sell some futures like it's going to be your life better, like, because let's say no, you can register with your digital ID and we will have everything connected, so it will be easier to you to pay your taxes and also your travelings, also whatever. But the other question is, what if you do something wrong, or what if they push over some regulations so that could be against you, like let's say we don't need to go that far. Let's just like how China worked with their social social score program, I think it's called.
Yeah.
So and little by little they put in those things in our own system, right? So and people and one thing that people always say is, yeah, but I'm not a bad person. I don't have anything to hide. But it's not about that. It's just about, it's about privacy. Privacy, it's part of your own rights, right? And that's another rabbit hole that actually
so many rabbit holes.
that we have seen. No, because I just remind that we had this podcast with what is the name of this guy? I forgot. He was gonna kill me. He was in the podcast. The one that works for Bitcoin Magazine.
Bitcoin Magazine.
Yeah, that he's the one the only one covering news in the White House. Corva.
Oh, Frank Corva.
Frank Corva, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
you're welcome.
Frank Corva. So he was. So he was covering Tornado Cash, and when he was when he was in the podcast, we were talking about that. And actually, one thing that I learned is actually that the cryptography is actually considered a weapon in the United States, like privacy. So it's for me, it was crazy. I was like, what? That's a human right. For me, it's a human right. So it was super interesting to me. And but that's US. But imagine like those kind of things pivoting to Europe, so you can see that little by little, you can play with your own rights. So it's that's the dangerous part. And with Bitcoin, I mean, it's really decentralized. So Bitcoin doesn't care who you are, what you do, if you have a lot of money, where you come from. It's just a peer-to-peer electronic cash system that actually has the best value properties of money, right? So that's kind of the difference of both things, and that's why I think the EU is like pushing powers to this, because they are like, all right, you already had your credit card, let's push to digital euros. You don't do anything, so for people, if you say to people you don't do to anything, it's like, all right, so yeah, let's do that. But in the end, they don't know what's behind. But actually, because there's the missing question of what is money, right? And if people don't actually know what is money, then and again, what I told you is that I think one of the things in euros is that people are very spoiled in the sense that they're protected somehow from the European Central Bank. So yeah, very complex topic.
Yeah, it is complex. And what you say about the digital ID is it is very real for me right now. In a few weeks, we have another referendum in Switzerland about the e-ID, so the digital ID. There was a vote a few years ago. The population said no, absolutely not. And the government basically said, the reason why people rejected the vote is that it was private companies. Oh, sorry, I just put my hand up. Do you see that? I had a good summer. Do you see that? I took my watch off. Take it off.
Me too.
You weren't outside this summer?
Yeah, of course.
I don't
was,
see your, I
but
can't
it's just
see the contrast.
Well, I mean, no, because the thing is that on summer, I took it off the entire summer.
Oh yeah, smart. I should have done that instead of walking around like this. But
Yeah.
but yeah, so the government said basically the reason the vote didn't go through is because it would be a private company managing your digital ID. We've decided that the government will manage and implement everything. Therefore, we're putting this to another vote. And so they're really playing on that angle that it's safe because it's the government doing it and not a private enterprise doing it. And so whenever there's a referendum, it's kind of cool. I wish I had it with me. You get an envelope and you have the topic of the referendum, the for side, the against side, what the government says, what the like parliament recommends you vote, what the official oppositions, what they're saying and stuff. And in the for side, one of the argumentations is like, with a digital ID, it'll be very easy to verify your age to buy products that are not suited for minors, like alcohol. And I'm like, you could do better than this, Switzerland. What kind of weak argument is
That's
that?
bullshit.
You want a digital ID to buy alcohol online? Like, really? Like that? You're printing that? I couldn't believe it, but I know how I'll vote, and I really hope that the Swiss population kind of, not even, just individuals connect the dots between like the digital euro. Apparently there won't be a digital franc, but you never know how things, will play out. And if I consider as well the ongoing negotiations between Switzerland and the EU in terms of trade, in terms of movement and stuff, there's nothing that would say that there would be a forced policy to have some kind of bridge or wallet that's necessary if you're transacting in euros. I mean, I have no idea. I'm speculating, but it seems to be a slippery slope.
And actually, that's quite interesting that it's a difference between if you still want to compare the EU with El Salvador. That
Yeah.
in our case, it was because all right, so yeah, they can sell it as whatever you said, but in El Salvador we had a really bad situation that people were unbanked. I mean, 90%, around 90%, probably a little bit less of the population didn't have access to the bank account, and the reason of that because we don't have the right infrastructures in terms that you can go to if you come from a rural area, poor area, the next bank that you will have, it will be in a small town, but in what condition they will have, and you don't have. And also it's the same thing for your ID. You cannot open a bank account if you don't have an ID. So there's a struggle, and also there's a long road to go from one place to another, right? So that
Yeah.
takes time, that takes your money. And so there was a lot of problems, and we were like, how can we make this better for the people? And one thing that actually was very clever, that Bukele shot out, it was like, all right, people don't have bank accounts, but everyone has a phone, even a shitty phone, but they have a phone.
Yeah.
So with Bitcoin, you don't need a fancy phone. You just need well, you can do a lot of things with Bitcoin depending how they use it, but you can install the most basic wallet, whatever wallet. I don't want to mention any specific one, but you install it and you have instant access to Bitcoin, right? And
Yeah.
you can pay to peer to peer. But that was a necessity for people because now you have the bank's tools without a bank, so that's really beneficial. You don't need an ID actually.
Yep.
Yeah, in
Exactly.
El Salvador we had the Chivo wallet, and that was a madness. And it was okay in the terms that, all right, that was their shot at the government to try to orange pill people. Uh, I mean, you have other ways to do it. The UI and UX, so it was a madness there. Yeah, but yeah, at least they try. But you can use another wallet that you don't require any ID, right? So you can compare the necessity, and you can compare the benefits of one thing. You can use Bitcoin just to have access to bank accounts and use money to peer to peer, or you can have digital euros with a lot of restriction, regulation, and we don't know all the small letters that are behind those contracts when you will have to sign to use the digital euros. So yeah, you can tell, and you can
I
also tell with how countries are, the direction of the countries, right? So
Yeah,
yeah,
I totally agree. And I love the way you said that with Bitcoin, you don't need ID. Remember
exactly.
that. Like anyone listening, remember that you do not need ID. We're not talking about an exchange. We're not talking about, some KYC mechanism. With Bitcoin, it is very possible to do what you need to do without ID.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
last little thing before we close out, how do you see the digital euro like playing out? We'll say if it's actually released in October of 2025, which is like a month or two away, depending on whether it's the beginning of October or the end of October. How do you see it rolling out, and how do you see adoption playing out?
Well, that's really complex, but I think I don't know. I'm just actually, I was talking about this with some friends, that how it actually will evolve. Actually, they are not Bitcoiner. We were just talking about that, but we have something popular here in Spain. I don't know there in Switzerland, that it's called Revolut, and it's getting
A Revolut, yeah.
yeah, it's getting really popular here in Europe. So with that app, you can do like almost everything in terms of finance, right? So I think with digital euro will be something similar, but the thing is that because I inspect and do my diggings on all those things, and they ask you like a lot of things. ID was the one requirement to have that. So, and you can actually see some cases. Let's say with Bitcoiners, I know some Bitcoiners, probably you also know, that happened that they were the bank from Revolut because they were just using Bitcoin or whatever. They weren't doing like nothing special. So let's say that, and compare it with digital euro. Let's say that they say, all right, you don't need your credit card or whatever. You're just gonna use the digital euro. You can gonna pay that, but they will attach that in everything with your taxes and with your regulation and with basically your lifestyle. So one thing that you need to start asking is like, does actually that make you free? Like, if you start paying with that, but they control, do you actually want to the government know whatever you do, and not, I'm just telling that you do something bad, but do you actually want that the government know that where do you go to the supermarket, where do you go to your vacations, like every single aspect of your life? For me, that's worse than being naked, because they know more about you than yourself. So they can know your financial weaknesses, or even they can track whatever you do. So that's not freedom, and for me that's the most important aspect that we need to fight, and that's why we talk about a lot about Bitcoin, right? Because in the end, I think it will be really easy because one thing that EU is good doing is the regulation. They are super good to pushing some regulation. Yeah,
World
when they,
champions even.
yeah, when it's on their benefit, they're really affecting doing some regulation. So I think it won't be like it will be really smooth for everyone, and people will be like, all right, that it will be actually way better. But we need more education in terms of how
And you
it's
don't
going
think it can get hacked though? Like that's a
Yeah.
huge, huge honeypot. Like you have people's lives. The entire EU population, that's a giant honeypot. I have no idea how the digital euro will work exactly. I've heard that it may be run on Ethereum. I've heard that it may be run on
No.
Solana. I don't know. I'm saying I heard. I don't know. But I mean, like, that is just that's a hack waiting to happen, in my personal opinion.
Damn it! And I was just thinking that the department of I don't know how the Minister of Finance. I was just thinking that here in Spain they get hacked at least once a year, you know. So it's like
I should
if they
be
can,
laughing.
yeah, I know. And there's always once a year there's this news that the Ministry of Finances was hacked and they have all the information on the people, and people complain, you know, in Twitter or whatever that. Yeah, now they have my information, blah, blah, blah. But then it passes a week and they forget about that shit.
And they forget about it, but they still get the calls and the emails and, you know, the WhatsApp messages and everything else. I'm not good at replying to messages in general, but now for the past, I don't know how long, I barely reply to anything. Like if I know something, I pay attention to it. Other than that, I don't do anything.
Yeah, so I didn't know that probably they will run it on a shitcoin, but it still is a shitcoin. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Can you? Yeah.
Study Bitcoin, Rice. Study Bitcoin. Study money. Study money.
Protect yourself. And in 5 years, when you look back at this podcast, you will say, "Oh yeah, I should have listened to Juan. I should have paid attention and listened." Thank you so much for this interview. Can you tell people where to find you, where to find the Bitcorner podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, you can find me on X at the Juan SC. And the Bitcorner is in all platforms, but use Fontine because it's great. And also in Nostr, we're right now moving season 4 into Nostr. That doesn't mean that it won't be available in all platforms. It will be available on all platforms. But one of the things as your work is that we want to remain it forever. So we don't want to be the censored in any platform. So Nostr, I think, is one of the places that we feel at home because we won't be forever censored there. So yeah, we're pushing towards to be more decentralized. So yeah, and listen to great shows just like your one.
Yes, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
No, thanks to you.
Keys. Yeah. Man like quakes. Man like who? Yeah. Takes her Bitcoin off exchanges under self-custody. She runs her own node, providing liquidity. Yeah, she got her own keys. She got her own keys. She got her own keys. Yeah, she got her own keys. 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 Yeah, she got her own keys.